The BumbleKast is for entertainment purposes only. The host's comments and opinions, and those of their guests, are wholly their own and do not represent that of any other entity. Content is provided as is, with no guarantees of accuracy or timeliness. Unauthorized redistribution or editing of the BumbleKast in whole or in part is strictly prohibited.
It's a BumbleKast Mini, brought to you by our standard questioners.
All right, here's one from Agira N to start us off. I just want to hear you guys fanboy over the Mega Man franchise. It can be the classic and X series, like talking about what your favorite villain designs or soundtracks are. My favorite designs are Quick Man, the Megamix manga design, Shadow Man, Blast Man, and Storm Eagle. My favorite OST has to be Spark Mandrill's OST, Proto Man's Whistle soundtrack, and Mega Man 2 Dr. Wily's Castle Stage 1. Boy, that's everyone's favorite right there.
I mean, you're not wrong in any regard. And that's
a
probably
solid
why Mega Man is so good, is that you can cherry pick from just about any game, any character, any robot master, any soundtrack, and there's going to be at least one gem.
Absolutely.
Like one thing that everybody enjoys, one thing that only you enjoy, but you're still valid. And
usually more than one.
Well, yes, but hedging my bets here.
Yeah.
I really enjoy just the colorfulness and the fun of classic.
Yeah.
Like, it just enjoys itself. It's just fun. It's comfy. When Mega Man 11 came out, and it was like, or no, not 11. Wait, was it 11? 9?
11 was the last one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I couldn't remember if they put a number on it.
Yeah.
Like they updated the look a bit, but it still felt like classic. And it doesn't have to be necessarily super deep or technical. It's just it's fun. It's comfy. It's Mega Man.
It's just nice, you know.
Good boy, do good things. Stop crazy hair man.
Yeah.
Who may or may not be a Robot Master or Wily reference. Your pick.
Yes.
And then with X, I like that it feels like the grown-up classic, but it's also super colorful and really goofy when you step back and look at it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it's fun to get into the gritty side of it and say, "Oh, X is so grim," and it's like, yeah, but you fight a neon mandrill.
On comparison, no, a neon tiger.
Yeah.
Spark mandrill, neon tiger. Come on, man.
Spark Mandrill is neon, okay? That's a descriptor. He's got more lights on him than a jukebox.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's part of his name.
Yeah. And X is also a little more experimental, both gameplay-wise and narrative-wise.
Yeah.
And just the breadth of the cast that you could get into, even though you only start showing up in like X5.
Really, it's just the character designs are so solid, too. Like,
yeah,
some of them are pretty goofy. Some of them are a bit outlandish, but I think that's part of the fun of it. Like, they get a little ridiculous, especially like the Maverick designs are pretty wild in some cases, but that's part of the fun of things, you know?
Yeah, it's that old Capcom extremism with the art that I love so much. Like, you look at Title McLean and you're like, how is he supposed to function? Shut up. He's a giant whale with like 4 headlights and he will run you over and it's great. That's
matter. Yeah. And then you got silly things like the Robot Masters or the silly things like the Mavericks of X5 being localized into Guns N' Roses references. It's like, why? Just weird things like that.
And X's design specifically takes, just the very basic, iconic Mega Man look and puts a spin on it, upgrades it a bit, adds a little more details without over designing it.
Yeah.
I feel like some of the later X stuff got too caught up in the details. I think Axel is a little over designed myself.
A little bit, yeah.
But X is just so elegantly upgraded from Rock's design. And one of the reasons I like Command Mission so much is they pushed X more into that post X6 very detailed range, but it still feels balanced. Like the core silhouette is there.
Yeah.
All the extra elements still feed into a singular cohesive look. And they pushed him into the realm that I don't particularly like, but they made it work, and I really like that about him.
Command Mission is just a really like inspiring game, just on a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
There's just something about that. It's like I mean, I'm not a turn-based RPG guy so much, but that one, I don't know. It's probably just part of it's the Mega Man aspect. Also, just like it's really fun. It's pretty cool. I would love to have seen more of that as like a sub-franchise continuation, but
yeah,
unfortunately, it seems to have kind of killed the franchise instead. So, I got to give a shout out to Breakman Stage from Mega Man 5. That is a solid tune. That's one of my favorites personally. Alrighty, let's go ahead and move on to this one here from Batman69 LOL. Frasier's Multiversal Podcast hosts the entire Venture family from the Venture Brothers. Jonas and the Monarch included. How does it go? What juicy character interactions can you squeeze from this?
Oh, God. This is a nightmare. I imagine it starts off very slow because nobody wants to open up. There is a lot of baggage and it's all tightly sealed. But Frasier is adamant about breaking through. This will be his Everest. He will make this work and show what a good psychologist he is. And eventually he starts breaking down borders. People do start opening up and talking to each other, and they're finding resolution. They're confronting their differences. And Frasier's getting full of himself because he's finally doing it. He's untangling this knot. And then things start to get out of hand and the tempers start to flare and the crazy music builds. And then it becomes a bloodbath. And somehow he gets just like full of darts from the Monarch.
Well, why not?
I mean, it starts with like 4 or 5 people in the room sitting there with their arms crossed, and it ends with some kind of giant battle mecha and everything on fire.
Well, at least Frasier will be back next episode.
Just have some little cutaway gag of Niles saying something pithy and Brock taking a drag off his cigarettes. Honestly, Niles.
Good. Big Sonic fan Patrick has a question. Were there times you tried out different games in a crossover franchise and felt that a series characters originated from was underwhelming compared to their portrayal in the crossover?
I'm trying to think of the crossovers I've played.
Crossover games versus the main games.
Yeah. I mean, the one that springs to mind for me was, original Smash Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the 4 silhouettes at first. I'm like, who are these? And then you get Ness and Captain Falcon. I'm like, who? And okay, I really dig Captain Falcon's playing style. Cool. What is he from? F-Zero. All right. It's a racing game. All right. What's his story? There isn't one.
Not really.
This was pre-GX, and pretty much Captain Falcon was designed for Smash Brothers.
It was essentially, well, it's designed for F-Zero X, but yeah.
I mean, he was a headshot. Did he have? Well, I guess he had a full
No, they
body,
had a full body
really
artwork in there. Yeah. And I think there's a little bit of story in like the manual for the original game, at least. I'm trying to remember if there was like any.
A paragraph.
Yeah,
right?
It's not much, but it's there.
There's no fucking punch.
No. That's specifically related to that. And I was like kind of hyped up to see Captain Falcon in there just because I am a big F-Zero fan.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've been an F-Zero fan since I played it, probably not long after it came out. So I don't know when I would have played it, but yeah, I was like, oh crap, Captain Falcon from F-Zero? What the heck is he doing here? Didn't expect this. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other crossover games.
Like, is there anyone you've played in Smash? Any characters you've seen in Smash and then gone to play their own games and you're like, oh, like just overall? I can't think of any really.
Not really, because I either already know about them.
Yeah.
Or they're in a genre or a game series that I'm not particularly inclined to go after. Like, sure, I know Terry Bogard and, the SNK legacy, but I'm not a big fighting game guy. I'm not going to go into that so much. That same goes for Street Fighter or
Tekken.
Yeah. God, no. I find Street Fighter abrasively technical. Forget about Tekken.
Yeah. Yeah. Tekken's a little silly.
Sure, but
Kingdom Hearts.
no.
I have not played Kingdom Hearts.
I dabbled in the first one, and that wore me out. So I appreciate what it has accomplished for itself. It has a strong enough fandom. It doesn't need me.
Yeah, no. All right, let's move on to this question here from Callum Q. Ian, if you could write a Pokemon comic series, what would it look like? I know you're a Pokemon fan, so I thought I'd give you the chance to talk about it.
I mean, really, it comes down to what would Nintendo let me do. Well, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company, let's be clear. But what I would like to do is some off the beaten path type stuff. Like, let's see day in the life of a Team Rocket grunt. Why are they joining Team Rocket? What is the day-to-day activities like? Are they dyed in the wool? Have they drunk the Kool-Aid? Or are they just doing it to get by and they're kind of sketchy about what are we really doing with these Pokemons? Or to me, the kind of climax of Emerald, when you have Groudon and Kyogre just battling it out, and then Rayquaza descends from the sky and tells them, hey, quit it. What did that look like for the people in town? You have two Leviathans, two kaiju literally reshaping the environment around them with their battle. What does that look for somebody on the boardwalk who might have heard a legend that their grandpappy told them about these things? And then, from the sky, you have Lizard Jesus or whatever Rayquaza counts as. Just saying, hey, quit it. Like, how do you even fathom that? Like, you have an Eevee. You feed it kibble. It gives you snuggles. You don't even fight with this thing. And you have literal gods descending outside. That would be neat to see from that angle. And the pie in the sky idea is to go back to like the Gen 1, Gen 2 setting that was a little rougher around the edges, where the world is recovering from some kind of devastating war, where kids getting their Pokemon and heading out into the wild is more of a rite of passage. And it's got that little more angular style. See Pokemon from a little spicier, rougher angle.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I get on this topic, because I come around to this every now and again, it's like, well, what if I did this? What if I did this? Well, what if we did it from this angle? It's like, just make your own. Come up with your own Grab Monsters universe. And I've got the early notes for something back there, and it's like, ooh, what if I did this as a game? What if I did it as a story instead? And it gets lost in the weeds, and I have to work on something else. Maybe I'll get around to it.
Come up with your own Grab Monsters universe. Get sued by Nintendo. Why not?
Joke's on them. I don't have money.
Yeah, well, that won't stop them. All right, God Save the Cam has a question. How long were you planning on keeping Wily quote-unquote dead in the eyes of the public following the Mega Man 3 adaptation? Would the MM4 arc have revealed to everyone that he was alive, or would he have been able to remain relatively hidden? Considering 4, 5, and 6 all have fake-out villains, it occurs to me that maybe only Rock and friends knew Wily was alive until he dropped the act in 7.
It's been so long. I think the idea would be at least he would be exposed in 4 just to exonerate Cossack, because Cossack needed the happy ending.
Yeah.
Cossack went through hell and back. He needed his win, and he's only going to get that if Wily is fully exposed.
Mm-hmm.
And then Wily could have been on the back burner for 5. I guess you could have played the Darkman thing straight and nobody really knows it's not Proto Man.
Mm-hmm.
And there would need to be that some degree of believability when he shows up as Mr. X. It's like, that looks like Dr. Wily with a bindi, but it's not Dr. Wily, obviously, because he's got a bindi.
Well, I thought Mr. X you were setting up Xander Payne to be Mr. X.
The idea at the time was that he was the true Mr. X, but he would be removed from the board, and that it would be Wily taking over at Mega Man 6.
Oh, okay.
So play the story straight as it was in the game, but establish an actual Mr. X beforehand so that Wiley has a persona to take instead of just inventing it out of thin air.
Out of nowhere. Okay. That makes some sense. That's why you're the writer.
I tried. I dabble in it here and there.
A little bit. Kyle G has a question. I heard that you tried to pitch a Mario comic. I was curious if it was only the one image or if you made demonstration pages too. And if so, was it done analog or digital?
I did the write-up for the general pitch, but there was no script or anything. I believe Tracy Yardley and Ben Bates did concept art for it, like maybe some conceptual pages, but there was no script to work off. This would have been just like them doing it on the fly. And I don't know if they did it traditionally or digitally.
Alrighty. Metal Skulkbane has a question. There are two iconic locations from Mega Man lore that did not appear in the comic. One, Monsteropolis. Two, that really tall building from the Mega Man 2 intro screen. What were your plans regarding them? If none, shame on you. Come up with something on the spot.
Okay, number one, and this one was a bone of contention at the time, and I understand why.
Yeah.
But Monsteropolis was the main city setting in the comic, the one that got eventually renamed into Mega City. We just never called it Monsteropolis.
Yeah. That's like, I think that's what it's supposed to be, right? Like the main.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I always thought.
I avoided it myself because I don't like it. It makes no sense. There are no monsters in Mega Man. Why is the place literally called Monster Place? And the reason was they just threw it in there in early day localization with no forethought.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it doesn't have a name in the Japanese material, so there wasn't anything I could pull from. So I just kind of avoided the situation, and Capcom let me. And then we got to the point where it's like, well, what do we call it? And it's like, oh, well, Mega Man saved the day a few times now. We'll call it Mega City. Ha ha. Issue resolved.
The Megas used Monsteropolis, though.
I know, and they did it spectacularly, and it's the way they're going to do their music. I will not correct them there.
Yes.
And I understand if you're a purist and if you grew up with it, you're probably not happy about that. And I get that. That's a completely valid response. But that's how I decided to handle it, and that's what Capcom let me do, and here we are. As for the super tall building, maybe I'm making it up, but I want to say it was the inspiration for the tower in the New Year's themed issue.
That seems,
I'm not 100% sure on that.
That sounds familiar. Yeah. Like maybe it wasn't immediately obvious, but yeah, that seems like it was it was in there. It had to be in there. Come on. Alrighty. Question from Nick Ninja. I wanted to ask Ian Flynn a question about the comics he made and was wondering if it's possible to make one out of my character.
I am freelance. I am for hire. I don't turn my nose up at indie projects. So if my schedule is open and you can afford it, then we can make it happen. All my contact info is over at BumbleKast.com. No, it's not. It's at BumbleKing.com.
Well, I mean, it's at BumbleKast.com too, in a sense. But yeah. Roberto H. has a question. Western comics usually have many people working on a comic. Japanese manga have a single person working on the story. With each system's pros and cons, which do you think is better or prefer?
The more prolific mangaka don't do it completely solo. They do have assistant artists to do backgrounds and stuff.
I was going to say, they have help. They don't do it all on their own, but yeah.
But it is very different from the traditional Western style that's very compartmentalized by department.
Yeah.
And I see the virtues of both. If you like with the mangaka system, if you have the artist that you trust and you are very close knit and you have a system to make it work, that sounds more creative. Not more creative, but more supportive creatively, I guess, where you have that dialogue between each other and you're all working towards a common goal together. But that also means you're splitting the bill 4 or 5 ways, and that bill ain't very big. Whereas there, at least in terms of managing my own schedule, it is kind of nice that I can fire off my script and I'm done with the project and I can move on to something else while everybody else is handling it down the line. And then I get notes, months later. It's like, hey, can you correct this? It's like, what was this again?
Oh, yeah. I remember this vaguely. How often does that happen?
Often enough.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
I wouldn't say anyone is necessarily better than the other because the way publishing is handled between the two is wildly different. The styles of stories are different. The marketing strategies are different. The paper dimensions and quality and such, they're all different. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, and part of them feed into how the process is done, and the process feeds into how that works. It's complicated.
Yeah, it is.
I prefer what I grew up on, personally. I know the Western system more, and that's what I do. If I could draw to my own personal satisfaction, I might go the more manga route and just do it all myself, but I'm not. I can't. So go to the other format where I just put the ideas on the paper and I hand it off to more talented people.
Sounds good to me. Last question from William C. When will you adapt Star Fox into a comic book? And will it include panels where Mew Lynx is working out due to being a tomboy? I don't think you have to be a tomboy to work out. Is that, I don't know, is that a thing, Ian?
This is strangely specific.
Yeah. It's a very specific request. But will you adapt a Star Fox into a comic book? When will you do that, Ian Flynn? Do it right now.
Give me the keys, Nintendo. Give me the keys. And here's the thing, too. You would have to do the first continuity where Mew actually existed, not the second continuity or the third, which I'm not opposed to. It would be neat to explore those and their differences, but
I wish I could just take one continuity. Like, I really hate that, like, the first game got remade, like, how many times? 3?
Yeah.
Why do they keep doing that? Just make a continuity and stick with it. That's
I do not envy the PR team when Star Fox Zero came out.
No.
They were getting directly asked, how is this continuing the story? And they're like, well, it's not a full reboot. It's a full reboot.
Yeah. Again.
It's starting over from scratch.
Again. And it's like
and the freaking little anime tie-in didn't even tie in properly to the game itself. And as someone who has worked on stuff like this, I understand some things slip through the cracks. Not everything can be perfectly synced, but it's on the outside. I'm sitting there going, could you not just make these two things properly connect? If you're going to throw everything out, can you not just start solidly from the get-go?
Yeah, that's really the frustrating thing about Star Fox is just the way they've rebooted it multiple times with different continuities. And it's like, it doesn't need to be this complicated. It's silly animal characters in space. Just go with that.
Start a GoFundMe. I'll just buy Star Fox.
I mean, it might be for sale at this rate. Wouldn't surprise me, honestly. Jeez.
Pull a Thanos. I'll do it myself.
Pretty much.
Use the boost to get through.
Do a
Press
barrel.
Z or R twice.
All right. Well, I think we're ready to blast off on out of here.
Thank you to everyone who submitted their standard questions. If you want a BumbleKast Mini of your own, head over to patreon.com/BumbleKast, Ko-fi.com/BumbleKast, or become a YouTube member. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and we will see you next time on the BumbleKast.
See ya.